A very happy Friday to you and yours from inside the CitrusTV studios. My name is Danny Tao, and if you've ever watched college football and thought, man, I gotta figure out how to make money on this, well, you're in the right place. Here on Beat the Bookie, we do exactly that. And can we get a round of applause for Jack Gordon? The third consecutive week cashing the Beat the Bookie parlay. I mean, that's gotta be a record. $86 in the bank has JG1 not just able to afford guac on his Chipotle bowl this week, he's at the top of the leaderboard this fall. And hey, don't let Beat the Bookie get hot. How about 2 out of 3 weeks in the green? 3 out of 5 if you'll excuse whatever it is Joe Puccio and Braden Reed did. You know, I'm sure they've already faced enough scrutiny from that demanding Syracuse media Jim Boeheim loved to hate, so I'll just leave it there. BTB is positive 6 weeks in. I'll do my best to keep that rolling. Remember, folks, 1 unit is $10. Let's start with perhaps the biggest game of the college football season to date. Number 3 Ohio State laying 5.5 points as it hosts number 7 Penn State. Now, what do Lou Holtz and I have in common? We're not big believers in the Buckeyes. This team just has not looked like the Ohio State of years past. And that goes doubly so for Penn State. This Nittany Lions team is loaded with talent, perhaps more than they've ever had under Coach James Franklin. So what will this game come down to? Drew Aller versus the Ohio State secondary. The Nittany Lions quarterback has as much arm talent as anyone in the country. And this might be the weakest Buckeyes secondary in recent memory. Penn State has never beaten a top 10 team on the road under Franklin, and that may not change tomorrow. But they are 6-0 this year against the spread, so you can bet $5 on Penn State covering 5.5. Now, how about some love for the ACC? Florida State is finally back. Keon Coleman, one of the best receivers in the country. That defense loaded again. The Noles aren't going to cover against Duke. Now, a lot of this game hinges on the health of Riley Leonard. The Blue Devils QB missed last week's win over NC State and is day-to-day with an ankle injury, but Mike Elko's got himself a well-coached squad. They commit the second least penalties per game in the ACC, also very solid numbers in the turnover margin department as well. Without Leonard, the Blue Devils probably won't be able to win this game, but at the least, they'll keep it close. $5 is what I'll put on Duke to cover, and if Leonard does play, keep your eyes on Doak S. Campbell Stadium Saturday night. Now, of course, tomorrow's the third Saturday in October, and that means it's time for Tennessee and Alabama. Shout out to the SEC for putting this game back on its rightful date, by the way. Last year's contest between these teams was a doozy. The Vols' first win over Bama in 16 years ended with Neyland needing a new set of goalposts. But now, we're back in Tuscaloosa. Tennessee hasn't won there since a 5-overtime thriller in 2003. A lot of the players in this game weren't even alive then. But I'll take the Vols to cover here for one simple reason. They have the better quarterback. Joe Milton is as experienced as they come in the college ranks, and he might have the strongest arm there too. You know what you're getting out of Tide QB Jaden Milroe at this point. A couple explosive plays, a couple duds, and a lot of sacks. That makes me a little too nervous to say that Bama wins by 9+. Give me the Vols and the points for $5. Now let's see how those picks compare to our producers. Disagreeing on 2 out of 3, Bama and OSU. Say the C-suite, but we are in agreement that the Blue Devils cover that 2 touchdowns and a half-point spread. And nice picture of me from a few years ago as well. Not sure where you found that one. But look, if you're new to betting on college football, let me clue you in on one of the best traditions in the sport. No, I'm not talking about Service Academy games, though these are pretty darn cool. I'm talking about Service Academy unders. The under is 43-10-1 since 2005 in games between Army, Navy, and Air Force. These teams all have to run triple option offenses due to their size disadvantages, so when they play each other, points are at a premium. Not only that, but both teams come into this game with quarterback questions. Zach Larrier will be out, quote, for a while for the Falcons, while Ty Lavatai is questionable with a rib injury for the midshipmen. The Navy defense has also already shut 2 teams out this year. And with the new running clock rules in college football in 2023, there will be even less possessions in this game. I'll put 2 units, $20 whole, on the under to come through once again. And speaking of teams that don't score very much, how about Iowa? One of the worst offenses in the Power 5 lost its starting quarterback in Cade McNamara a few weeks ago. Since then, the Hawkeyes have scored just 35 points in 2 games. Oh, and they won them both. This team's philosophy can be summed up pretty well if you paraphrase legendary baseball manager Earl Weaver's style for football. Punting, defense, and 3-point field goals. This total of 31.5 is tied for the lowest in the last 20 years with 2 other Iowa games from last year. One was Iowa's 21-0 win over Kentucky. The other, Iowa, Minnesota. The Hawkeyes took that game 13-10, and you can expect a similar score here between two paltry offenses. $10 to the under in a game that will probably set football back about 75 years. One of the more underrated trends in college football the past few years is fading Michigan on the first half spread. The Wolverines have been good enough to have large lines, but they are a methodical offense that wears defenses down over the course of a game. They tend to pile on the points in the second half. Over the past 2 years in conference play, Michigan has led by more than 14 at half just once, and that came against Nebraska earlier this year, and even then only thanks to multiple Huskers turnovers in their own territory. This is certainly not the best team Michigan State's ever had, and to call this season tumultuous for Sparty is an understatement the same way Lawrence Oates just went for a short walk. But the green and white offense looked as good as it has all year with Caton Hauser taking over under center last week against Rutgers, and I'm going to trust the trend and put $10 on Michigan State to cover the first half spread of 14. Well, from the Paul Bunyan Trophy to the South's oldest rivalry, Virginia and North Carolina meet for the 128th time tomorrow night in Chapel Hill. The 10th-ranked Tar Heels are 3.5 touchdown favorites, and for good reason. Virginia is bad. Last in the ACC in both scoring offense and scoring defense. The only player the North Carolina defense really needs to worry about is Wahoo's wide receiver Malik Washington, who leads the conference in receiving yards. But UNC's got the conference's leading passer and rusher in Drake May and Omarion Hampton, respectively, and that Tar Heel offense as a whole is one of the best in the nation. I like Jack Gordon's thinking last week with his Drake May future bet for the Heisman, plus Carolina's 5-1 against the spread. Tar Heels by $1 million, $5 to prove it. Now, Central Florida isn't quite the powerhouse it was a few years ago, and they've got a 29-point blowout loss at Kansas to prove that. But quarterback John Rice Plumlee returns this week for the Knights, and even with him missing time, UCF ranks 15th nationally in net yards per play, one spot ahead of the Sooners. And this might be one of the rare times a team didn't want its bye week. Oklahoma's big Red River rivalry win over Texas 2 weeks ago, a distant memory, along with all the momentum the Sooners got from it. Plus, Oklahoma lost leading receiver Andrell Anthony for the year against the Longhorns. If you need any more convincing to ride with the Knights off their bye as well, here's a trend for you. Gus Malzahn, the UCF head coach, 12-4 against the spread with 10 or more days to prepare, and he covers by double digits on average in those games. I'm riding with the Knights to the tune of a crisp Abe Lincoln. Now for my dog of the week, where better to take inspiration from than the underdog who graces the dollar bill we're throwing on this game, Alexander Hamilton himself. Wildcat fans are singing "You'll Be Back" to Ben Bryant in hopes of getting the grad transfer under center this week, but his right-hand man in Brendan Sullivan should keep the Northwestern faithful satisfied. Sullivan was efficient both through the air and on the ground in his only start of the year, and he can do enough to help the Wildcats stay alive in this game. Nebraska also took a break last week with a bye, but the Huskers' defense is non-stop, second best in the Big Ten against the run. And you would think that would be enough against a Northwestern team that already struggles to move the ball on the ground, but Nebraska likes to run the ball itself and slow the game down. A few mistakes here and there against a young, scrappy, and hungry Northwestern team, Memorial Stadium might just be turned upside down. Is it a long shot? Maybe. But plus 320? I can't say no to this. $10 on the Wildcats to blow us all away. Now I'm going to mix it up here for my parlay of the week. In fact, I think this might be a beat the bookie first. We're placing a round robin of parlays this week. A normal parlay of 3 requires all 3 teams to win to pay out. With a round robin, this is a set of 3 two-leg parlays between the combinations of these 3 teams. So what I'm doing here is placing $5 a piece on each two-leg parlay for these teams. To make it simple, this just means I'll still make money if only 2 of these 3 teams win. Got it? Good. Now, I already talked about Penn State, so I won't go into it again. All I'll say is all streaks must come to an end, and Penn State's road losing streak to top 10 teams dies in Columbus. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, we're buying low on Indiana and selling high on Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights were downright lucky to escape Michigan State last week and have waltzed to a 5-2 record against a pretty easy schedule. The Hoosiers have struggled out of the gate, but they've run a gauntlet of opponents so far. With a new offensive coordinator in his second game and first out of a bye, I expect Indiana to put a few new looks on the field against a Rutgers defense, playing its 8th game in a row before a bye next week. Tom Allen might be coaching for his job this week, so give me the Hoosiers in a must-win spot. And FAU has been my personal sleeper all year long. I have the conference winner future from before the season to prove it. This is an Owls team with momentum from 2 straight wins, they throw the ball well, and they're just as good at defending the passing game. I'll take Tom Herman's crew to continue its run to the AAC title game with a 4th straight win over the Roadrunners. Taking things to the pros for my future bet, I'm putting $10 on the Baltimore Ravens to win the AFC North. Now, is this a homer pick? Maybe. Is this a value pick? Absolutely. The Ravens have the second best odds of any divisional favorite in the NFL right now, trailing only the Bucs at plus 165. Baltimore is 4-2 with a half-game lead in the division right now, and they've already played all 3 of their divisional road games, and the 2-1 record there is not too shabby. This is also a team getting healthier as the season goes on, with cornerback Marlon Humphrey, safety Marcus Williams, edge rusher Odafe Owe, and more getting back on the field. Plus, take a look at the rest of the division. Joe Burrow has not been himself all year for the Bengals as he battles a calf injury. The Browns haven't found a consistent offensive formula that works 2 games in a row. And Pittsburgh fans are calling for offensive coordinator Matt Canada's job at every available opportunity. Seriously, they were chancing it at a Penguins game. Give me the Ravens as Kings of the North this season to put a cherry on top of what will be the biggest profit on Beat the Bookie this year. So there you have it, folks. That's exactly how this weekend of college football is going to go. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if you tuned out a little during the show, I forgive you. It's Friday. You're looking forward to the weekend. I'll just sum it up for you real quick. Tail some double-digit dogs in the spread, trust the trends, and we are Penn State. Of course, these aren't the only games this weekend, but we only have so much time and money here on Beat the Bookie. I'm Danny Tao, and as Luke Combs says, if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be doing this. So give me a follow at @TheDannyTao on X for the best bets all season long. But for our producers, Ethan Frank and Jordan Leonard, I wish you best of luck, and as always, please bet responsibly. See you next time.